Well, hello everyone. Welcome to DMXP. This is going to be my first video I've ever made on this channel. Planning to do a lot more, but I wanted to start it off with just a simple, quick video on five first level spells that are highly underrated in 5th edition. I know that the new core rulebooks are going to be coming out in a few months here, and that's going to change a lot of this, but I thought I would cover this while we still have this current edition of the game and these five spells in their current iterations because they're really strong, and people do not use them enough, in my opinion. All right, so the first spell we have here is Command. You speak a one-word command to a creature you can see within range. The target must succeed on a Wisdom saving throw or follow the command on its next turn. This spell has no effect on undead if it doesn't understand your language or the command is directly harmful to it. So you can see here we have five listed things that you can do with it. You can give other commands, other one-word commands. But these are the five main ones that are available and have prescribed things of what they can do. Other things that I can think of generally just fall under this, and I'm not sure how they would work. But these two of these are really good. One of them's all right. Two of them are very very niche cases. But this spell has a lot of potential to upset like action economy and also help you deal a lot of damage and really can shift a fight very very quickly. So we're going to start off with the one that's the most powerful most of the time, which is Grovel. Well, actually, it and Flea are both very useful. I mean, it just depends. But Grovel is generally the one you're going to use the most, okay? So the target falls prone and then ends its turn. That is very strong. So, for example, a Thri-Kreen I have, and he has telepathy, so he can target anything. It doesn't have to understand the language. So he picked a clay golem, I think, or a stone golem. And they speak at least one language, and that's the language of their creators or creator. Okay, it failed its wisdom saving throw and it falls prone. So what that means is it does nothing. It does not attack. It does not move. It falls prone, and that when the creature is prone, you get advantage on all attack rolls against it. Okay, that's pretty good for a first level spell slot. You can target one creature and it does nothing, and you get all of your teammates get advantage on it, assuming they're not making range attacks, right? Then you can upcast this. I need to make a video about spells that you can upcast, because generally, or that are good at being upcast, generally it's not a good idea to upcast things. This thing is great when you upcast it. Up to probably second level for sure. Third level starts getting costly, but can be definitely worth it still, especially if you're. And this spell, okay, I have to say, this skill gets exponentially more powerful beyond 6th level. Once you start once you start not using a lot of your first and second level spells to actually deal damage. But you can target 2 creatures if you cast it second or 3 at level 3. That's really good because for one action, you can fuck up 3 creatures' actions on their next turn so they don't do anything, and then your whole party is going to have advantage on them. Or, this can also be really good, is because they're prone, they have to use half their movement to stand back up, you can use this to also retreat if you have to. Really good. Okay, now on to Flee, though. This one is also good, especially if you're not trying to necessarily deal damage with this, is you command them to flee so they move. Okay, target spends its turn moving away from you by the fastest means available. Okay, that means double move, in my interpretation. I think almost all DMs would agree with that. So it uses its action to run as far away as possible. Okay, so that's one turn it goes away. And then after the spell ends, it has to use its next turn to come back if it wants to come back and fight. That is 2 actions you get out of a creature for one spell. And if you cast that second or third, you can do that to like 3 creatures. And often at that level, they're going to be like 100 hit point creatures that deal decent damage that just flee and you don't have to worry about, so you can mop up the rest of it. That's really, really, really strong. Approach obviously is good if someone's running away from you. Halt. I don't see a whole lot of use for that one. It's alright though. And then drop is good if like a wizard has a spellcasting focus and you want to take that away from them. I will want to now say that there's a few things that are also really good about this spell. And I'll get in kind of coming over the limitations of it in a little bit here. But the main one is if you have telepathy as like a Thri-Kreen, or as like what I mean, warlocks probably can get it. I'm not sure off the top of my head though. You know, if you have telepathy of some kind, helm of telepathy, you know, a way to be able to communicate with creatures without needing to have a language to understand each other. You can just do this on any creature that speaks a language. So like my Thrycrane that I have right now, and I'm playing in Dungeon of the Mad Mage, is using this spell an awful lot to command people. And it's doing wonders, and we're having cakewalks. The second thing is can also be really good at chipping through legendary resistances, especially on like something like a dragon, right? So, okay, they have a decent wisdom, but at that level your DC is probably like 16, 17. It probably has like a plus 6 or 7. So 50-50 chance roughly it passes. Okay, it fails though, let's say. Um, the Dungeon Master is going to use a legendary resistance so the dragon doesn't just do nothing on its next turn. I would say. So that's pretty strong. You can, of course, use it on other creatures too. Um, I'm trying to think if there's anything. Oh, I want to talk about the limitations. So yeah, so can't be undead. I mean, that's a hard stop right there. But to also get through the languages thing, I mean, you just need to know a word. You need to know flee and grovel probably only. And finding out what flee and grovel in one language is not very hard to do. Like, oh no, I have to speak primordial to this Zorn. I guess they speak what, Terran, right? Okay. Gotta go figure out what grovel in Terran is. Not that hard to do, especially if you're in a major city or can find just information on languages. Finding one word from a language and memorizing it is not that hard to do, so you can definitely get over that sort of problem, that limitation there pretty easily, in my opinion. Alright, so the next spell we have here is Tasha's Caustic Brew. It's a one action cast, and the range is a 30-foot by 5-foot line. Each creature must make a dex saving throw or be covered in the acid. The acid damage is 2d4 at the start of each of its turn unless it uses an action to scrape off the acid. Acid, number 1, is a fairly good damage type. Not many things are resistant or immune to it, so that's alright for a first level spell. And 2d4 damage isn't great, but it is AoE. It's not a great AoE effect, but that's not awful, you know, especially with the fact when you start thinking about how you can improve this spell. If you cast it at second level, you can make that 4d4 acid damage a turn, and that makes it really compelling for creatures to actually want to wipe the acid off instead of just grunting through it through the combat. Um, it does take your concentration, but I think that's really fine once you start looking at this like critically, because a lot of creatures, if you cast this at second level, it's going to deal enough damage where people are going to actually have to take the time to wipe off the acid. So that's going to take off a creature's action. And that prevents that creature from making attack actions against your teammates, which is going to save you hit points. And a significant amount of them if you do this little trick I'm going to tell you about, if you're a sorcerer. So if we go to sorcerer and we look at the meta magic, look at distant spell here. When you cast a spell that has a range of 5 feet or greater, you can spend 1 sorcery point to double the range. The range of the spell is a 30-foot by 5-foot line. You use 1 meta magic point, which is very little, to make this 60 feet by 10 feet. You're going to hit a lot more creatures with that line, and if you cast it at second level, that's going to be 4d4 acid damage that they're probably going to take their action to wipe off. So you're going to you're going to deal decent damage to a decent amount of creatures and make them use their action to not do anything, or to wipe off the acid, I mean. That's going to save your party hit points. So for a second level spell slot, you're realistically, if you can hit 4 creatures, right? 4 creatures are affected by this. They're going to take, that's going to be 16 d4 damage that you're going to deal. For a second level spell slot, that's quite good. And they're going to have to spend their action not doing anything, which is going to save your party hit points. So let's say it saves your party from taking 20 damage. I think that's a pretty reasonable amount from 4 creatures, maybe 15. That's like 2 cure wounds. So you're getting about an average of 32 damage and saving your team 16 hit points for a second level spell slot and 1 meta magic point. That seems pretty good to me. I don't know about you. Alright, and for a third spell, we have Color Spray. This one is notoriously not that good from what I hear, but I think this one actually has some really good potential with certain builds, and a little bit more use of meta magic as we talked about with Tasha's Caustic Brew. So here's what the spell does. One action, it's a 15-foot cone. So sort of has like the same AoE effect as the last one, so you can use the meta magic distant spell to make that a 30-foot cone. And I'm going to take you into roll 20 after this to show you what that looks like. So it lasts one round, available to sorcerer and wizards. You roll 60, 10, and that's how many hit points of creatures you can affect. It kind of works like sleep, where it starts from the lowest creature and then goes up to the highest in hit points. And creatures who you basically subtract the total from sleep, and any creature that's affected by this is blinded until the spell ends. And it lasts one round. So until the end of your next turn, basically, is how long they are blinded for. For first level spell slot, 15-foot cone isn't great, but if you use that meta magic point to make that a 30-foot cone, we go over here. We've got little Vestis, our fire wizard, who makes her little cone. Oh, and then she uses the meta magic point. That's a much bigger cone that hits a lot more creatures very easily. And while this doesn't deal damage, it's going to average about like 33 hit points worth of creatures that it will affect. So this is a first level spell again, and if she's second level and uses one meta magic point to get this cone, she's going to put basically blind an entire encounter for one round, which is going to basically give everyone on your party advantage to hit them, and and then give the enemy disadvantage to hit you for one turn. That is pretty akin to. I don't think the spell is like. I think the spell is honestly most easily compared to something like Fairy Fire, where they have to make a dexterity saving throw, or you have advantage on them until Fairy Fire ends. But Fairy Fire is a concentration, and they have to make a dexterity saving throw. They could end up not being affected. Where with this, with 6d10, you're going to affect them if they're low enough level, and you're going to blind them. That's pretty strong in my opinion. And if we also take a look at something like blindness and deafness, which is another spell that blinds creatures, okay, it's a second level, so one level higher. It's got a 30-foot range, one action, duration, it's a minute. It's not concentration though. And you choose a creature, and it has to make a saving throw or be blinded or deafened. But it can repeat that at the end of its turn. Creatures, compared to your DC at this level and their constitution bonuses, because you're going to want to pick something that's worth actually blinding, it's probably going to have a +4, and this is probably only going to last like a turn or two, maybe 3 if you're lucky. So it's honestly just better to cast Color Spray because you're going to and they don't get a saving throw. You just have to roll decent enough. And at second level, a second level spell, you're like a third level, a boss might have like 30 or 40 hit points. So if you roll decently or cast at second level, you're going to probably blind them for a turn to give them disadvantage on hitting you and you advantage on hitting them. That's pretty strong in my opinion. It is better against low-level characters or low-level monsters, but I mean, you get the idea. I'm kind of rambling at this point. I mean, this is also good on blade singing wizards if you want to, like, if you're going to be upfront and personal, right? And you want to blind a whole bunch of things for your party. This is also potentially very, very strong on an Eldritch Knight. Okay, why? So you can action surge. So you can action start by using your action to Color Spray a 15-foot cone, and then you can use your action surge to attack these blinded creatures. That's pretty good, and especially if you have like, even if you're just like multi-classing as not even an Eldritch Knight, just as a fighter and a sorcerer, and you want to make that a big cone with some meta magic, that's quite strong if you action surge. I mean, that's the gist on Color Spray. It's an underused spell. Use it. Your Dungeon Master won't like you. Also, if you're a Dungeon Master, it uses against your players. They will also not like you. All right, we're going to move on to the next one, though. I do have actually really quick one thing I want to say before I move on to the next spell. And let's look up Cone of Cold really quick. So if you use meta magic on this is also a 60-foot cone, or is a 60-foot cone. You could use a meta magic one sorcery point 1 sorcery point to double that. So this is, remember, this is Vestas. Here's her 15-foot cone for burning hands or color spray. Here's it if she uses a meta magic point, a sorcery point. And then this is Vestas if she casts Cone of Cold. This is also Vestas if she uses 1 sorcery point to cast Cone of Cold as a distance spell. That's crazy. People say, I mean, Fireball is, if we compare Cone of Cold to Fireball, a 5th level Fireball, if you cast at 5th level, will do on average 1 less damage than Cone of Cold, but in a much better area. If you use 1 sorcery point, this is a much better area than Fireball. I just wanted to bring that up before I move on to Snare here. All right. So for our 4th spell here, we have Snare. It takes a minute to cast, so that's a long time. But it lasts until it's dispelled or triggered. So how does this spell work? While you cast this spell, use a cord or rope to create a circle with a 5-foot radius on a flat surface within your reach. When you finish casting, the cord or rope disappears to become a magical trap. You can do an investigation check to find the trap, but if you trigger it and you're a smaller, larger creature, you must succeed on a dexterity saving throw or be fall prone and be hoisted up into the air where you are now restrained. So you are prone and restrained while you're in this snare. And this snare is like a trap that lasts forever. This is really powerful because you can put these all around a base camp, or put a few of these up around your camp in a dungeon to trap, like a random encounter that might come by. And they're going to be all restrained and prone. And they can break free against your spell save DC, but they have so at disadvantage unless they make an Arcana check, which most creatures are not going to be proficient in Arcana or have, and very few creatures have very high intelligence that you fight in D&D, especially ones that are random encounters where this would be useful. So you're basically going to be able to punch them and kill them very easily if you put a whole bunch of these around. It only takes 30 feet of rope, and 50 feet of rope is 1 GP, so this is really like 6 silver pieces. You can also, there's some cool ideas you can do with this, like setting this up beforehand and leading monsters back into the snare. That could be pretty good. It's also, you can, like I said, you can make infinite amount of these because its duration is until dispelled. And it can also be really cool if you have like trying to defend like your ranger's forest, or like there's a faction of rangers and they have a whole bunch of these set up. If you're a dungeon master, that's a good thing. Or goblinoids could have this spell set up around their base, hoist you up. And it's also just good. It just has a lot of potential to defend yourself and for role-playing stuff. And it restrained and proned on top of each other is pretty good. But that is Snare. You should use that one, pick it up. It's pretty nasty. All right, and now for our 5th and final spell. We have Longstrider. This one is notoriously bad, at least people say so. So, for 1 action, it's a 1st level spell that lasts for an hour. You can touch a creature, and speed increases by 10 until the spell ends. That doesn't seem great at first glance, but if you think about that, okay, you can make a human speed 40, which is all right. You can also upcast it, to affect an additional creature. But this spell also affects all speeds a creature has, rules as written. So, if you have a lizard folk in your party, it can now swim at 40 feet a turn instead of 30. And 40 feet, that extra 10 feet of movement doesn't seem that great, but when you think about it, think about all the times that you're just like 5 or 10 feet short of getting into combat, so you have to actually use your double movement to get in there, like use your action to move up close enough. This mitigates that, and it's a 1st level spell that lasts an hour. Once you're at higher levels, especially like past 5th, you're not even going to be worried about using a 1st level spell. This is also good because you can set up some really interesting ways of forcing the monsters to use their action to double move as a fighter, if you're like the tank. So if you're a battle master and you have this cast on you, you can use, like, instead of disengaging and just backing up 40 feet, which you could do and force them to double move into you on their turn, you could attack, use uncanny, or what's it called, the fancy footwork to get bump up your AC, then back up too, and just keep sort of doing that and keep forcing them to use their action to double move into you. I mean, they'll probably wisen up to it, especially if they're smart creatures, but there's definitely some interesting things you can do with this. This also allows you to. Oh, yeah, you can be affected by this multiple times. So someone could cast this 4 times on you for 4 level 1 spell slots and make your movement speed 70 feet if your base is 30. That's interesting. You basically cannot be caught. So this spell definitely has some uses. I think it actually has a lot of great potential, and I think people should look into this one. It does take some. You have to kind of lean into it once you have it up to get value of it. But it definitely can be very good in combat because of the way it can force you to creatures to have to use their action to double move into you. I do have one last thing I want to say before I go here for my first video is that I have an honorable mention of Unseen Servant. Okay, this one, I mean, it sees use, not taken that often. You can read the spell here, but I don't want to take much time with this one. And what it says is, as a bonus action, you can mentally command the creature to do stuff, interact with objects. Okay. It has a list of things it's generally prescribed that it can do. I would say that this next thing that I'm going to bring up is within that. So, if you give the Unseen Servant vials of poison, you can use a bonus action to poison your weapons with it, or have the Unseen Servant poison your weapons every turn. That's pretty strong, especially if you have like Wyvern or Purple Worm poison. You just, as a bonus action on your turn, especially if you're a rogue, use your bonus action to have your. Oh, well, you'd have to be. Actually, a rogue couldn't do this. If you're a wizard or a warlock or a bard that's evil, can use their bonus action to have their Unseen Servant poison their weapon and then go make a melee attack. Or it could poison an ally's weapon who is also evil. It gets around that whole, oh, you have to spend the one action to poison it, and the poison only lasts for 1 minute because otherwise it dries up. I don't know, pretty strong. I thought I would mention it on here, but that is kind of the only thing I could come up with it. But yeah, all right, I'm going to leave it off here. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please like the video. Please subscribe. It means a lot to me. I will see you guys around, and I'll have another video coming out shortly. Thank you. Bye-bye.